Hello and welcome to another Royal Reviewer live channel episode and review of season 4 or series 4 of Netflix's The Crown. We are on episode 8, so I've watched up to episode 8. I haven't watched any further, so I've still got 2 more to go. But this episode is called 48.1 and it's episode 8. So without further ado, I'm going to go to the synopsis and read that. And then I'll kind of go back and discuss it. So, and obviously it's a live chat, so people are dropping in. I'll be trying to answer as many viewer comments and questions on the episode as I can. Let me know your favourite moments of this episode. And if you have any questions, do put them and I will try and answer them. So, Thatcher and the Queen clash over imposing sanctions on apartheid in South Africa. The Queen believes that the sanctions are necessary to fight racial segregation and bring the Commonwealth nations together. Yet Thatcher believes this would hurt Britain's trade. After a series of modifications, including changing the word sanctions to signals, Thatcher signs the agreement to impose pressure on South Africa. Back in the UK, the press claim that the Queen is dismayed with the Prime Minister's actions. When questioned about it directly by Thatcher, the Queen insists on her apolitical position, yet tells her press secretary to remain silent about rumours of a feud between the two women. The Queen's household holds the press secretary Michael Shea responsible for the rumours to take the attention away from the Queen. So that's kind of the premise of the episode. So Again, this episode very much deals with the relationship between monarch and prime minister, constitutional head of state and elected prime minister, and the kind of roles that they have. It very much explores the Queen's kind of apolitical stance, but yet the Queen does have weekly meetings with the prime minister. She has the right to be consulted. She has the right to ask questions, which is what she does. But very rarely does she, give an opinion on politics, even to her prime ministers. The Crown, I'm not entirely sure how they've got almost like the details of conversations between monarch and prime minister. That part may very well be fiction. As far as I'm aware, no prime minister, apart from maybe David Cameron on the odd occasion, has actually let slip what's gone on in these private weekly audiences with the Queen. In Thatcher's memoirs, I don't think she's actually really, said what has gone on in conversations with the monarch. It is kept very, it's a very sacred bond between Prime Minister and monarch and Prime Minister. So, I think Netflix The Crown has taken a little bit of liberty with the content of the conversations, but the whole kind of, the message behind it is true, because these things were going on. At that time, we did have apartheid in South Africa. Sanctions were being, asked to be agreed by the nations to put on South Africa. So it is very much, the theme is true. And also, I think that the Queen's support of sanctions, the Queen's support of ending apartheid, is one that is very genuine and true. Don't forget that in later years, Nelson Mandela and the Queen were friends. I think Nelson Mandela was the only person who called her Elizabeth, and she liked it. She loved Nelson Mandela. They were really close friends. She met him on a number of occasions on visits. They had a very friendly relationship. So, anyone who's kind of suggesting out there that the Queen, might be racist or hold any racist tendencies, they just need to rethink their position on that stance, because the Queen most definitely was in support of ending apartheid. That theme has been explored in this episode, and I think although we don't know the intricacies of the details of conversation, the theme is true and correct. So, Thatcher and the Queen clash over imposing sanctions on apartheid in South Africa. So we saw this kind of very testy, meeting between the Queen and the Prime Minister, where the Queen kind of expressed her wish that Britain would put sanctions upon South Africa. And of course, Thatcher explains her position that perhaps it might hurt Britain's trade. So after a series of modifications, where we saw this extraordinary scene of the document kept being batted back and forth between monarch and Prime Minister, with all these different words. Thatcher would not go for the word sanctions, or any other word that was put to her. When she got to signals, when signals were put with her, I can almost do an impression. She had a pen, and she had the document, and she was like, signals. I think we can work with signals. And she wasn't crossing it. I think we can work with signals. So there you go. Signals it was. Signals got passed off. And she agreed to impose pressure on South Africa to end apartheid, basically. Back in the UK, the press claims that the Queen is dismayed with the Prime Minister's actions. So we had a little bit of a furore going on roughly at the same time as Sarah and Andrew's wedding. We had a little bit of an extraordinary scene where, and again, we don't know if this actually happened, but it explores the theme of the well kind of believed detail, though again we don't have any actual detail on this, that the Prince of Wales, Prince Charles, would like a more slimmed down monarchy. Again, there's no actual evidence for this, but it's a long held rumour, shall we say. So the Crown explores this long held rumour. So on the eve of the wedding, Charles kind of meets Anne, Edward, Andrew at Buckingham Palace, presumably, and basically kind of dresses them down, tells them that they are, that they are going to be removed, almost, removed from the crown. When William has children, they'll be on the outskirts of the royal family, on the peripheral of the royal family, where Edward's heard to comment, that was harsh, and he used a bit of a different word than that in the Crown version. But basically it explores that kind of theme of that Prince Charles, would like a more slimmed down monarchy. So yeah, we saw Sarah as well. We saw a portrayal of a young Fergie, and I have to say, I think the actor who captured that, those brief moments of Fergie, really, really captured her well. They kind of got that vivacious, that kind of breath of fresh air blowing into the royal family at that time. So there we go. So we did see a bit of a Fergie. So when questioned about it directly by the Queen insists on Thatcher's and tells her press secretary to remain silent about the rumours of a feud between the two women. So yeah, so the press were getting wind of this kind of tensions between them, and the Queen didn't want to do anything to end that. She said basically in one scene, perhaps it might not be too bad for the world to think that she doesn't agree with the Prime Minister on this one, and she was the Queen was warned against it by her political advisors. Of course, it got out into the media, and it was played out in the media, and basically the palace at that point was looking for a scapegoat. Michael Shea was that scapegoat. He was told pretty much that he was going to be that scapegoat, and that kind of did deflect from the Queen's position and kind of held her apolitical position intact. Let's go now to the questions and see what people are saying about this episode. Did you enjoy the episode? Ros Peter says, I love the jumper. Thank you. It's houndstooth. Do we recognise the houndstooth from somewhere? There we go. Just giving you a little jiggle with the old jumper. Do we recognise the houndstooth? Ros Peter says, do you think the Crown needs a disclaimer that it is fictional? I think when you are dealing with a dramatisation that is about people that are still alive, don't forget, the series now is tackling things that are in living memory. They are to do with people that are still alive, largely, and when they have embellished things, and yes, basically, I think they should put, that perhaps an artistic license was taken in some of the scenes. Maybe they should even put that they are just exploring themes. I mean, that's what I've been looking at this series as. It is exploring themes, it's exploring topics, it's exploring issues that happened. But of course, you know, in all of the different series of The Crown, you never know what goes on in personal conversations. As I've said in previous episode reviews, I think what The Crown has taken a little bit of an artistic license on is perhaps the timescales of things. So yes, I think they should put something on there just because it's dealing with people that are still alive. These are things that people still remember. And if they are embellishing things, if they are, for example, portraying people in a way where they don't have evidence to back that up, then perhaps they should put a disclaimer. Going back to some earlier episodes. Now, last night I actually sat down and re-watched Diana in Her Own Words. This is a documentary put out on Netflix. Netflix has been a little bit defensive, especially on Twitter. They have been tweeting basically excerpts from Diana in Her Own Words. So these are recordings of Diana. They are true, real recordings of Diana when she was speaking to basically giving source information for Andrew Morton's tell-all book, Diana, Her True Story. So these are all true. So if you watch the almost 2-hour Diana in Her Own Words documentary, I think it was actually first brought out in 2017. I think I watched it round about that time, but I re-watched it last night. Basically, I think The Crown has got a lot of its source information, particularly pertaining to Diana, from Diana in Her Own Words. Of course, that was out in 2017. They wouldn't have even started making this series at that point. In Diana in Her Own Words, she does confirm that she did indeed have a dinner with Camilla and all of that. So all of that is true. Again, we don't know, you know, what was actually said at that dinner, but we do, you know, basically see a lot of things from Diana's perspective. And basically, if Netflix The Crown has gone off Diana, her, you know, in her own words, basically that's one side of the story. So I think what a lot of you know, royal reporters and people in the palace might be a little bit dismayed about is that it might be very heavily based on Diana's version of events. And just because Diana has said something herself doesn't necessarily mean that her version is the true version. We all have, you know, our own versions of events, and pretty much, you know, in reality what is true is probably somewhere more in the middle. So I think they have based a lot of what's in The Crown on Diana, you know, in Her Own Words, that documentary. If you haven't seen that documentary, go and watch it, because you'll see what I mean. A lot of what Diana is saying in it has actually been put in The Crown. I mean, again, going back, Diana recalls the time that she met Charles. It was actually at Windsor when he proposed. She recalls a time when they actually first met at Althorp, but it was actually in the picture gallery. It wasn't Diana dressed as a nymph or that kind of thing. So, you know, they have embellished and twisted a few things. Right, Christine's laughing at Prince Edward's portrayal in The Crown. Mercury Angel says, I found it strange that a disclaimer is required, although we know the outcome, no one actually knows what was said. Yes, we don't. Like I said, really, Netflix The Crown can only explore the themes about it. But generally, I think they've done quite well with exploring the themes, if you look at it in that way. Ros Peter says, also, this season felt, for me at least, almost anti-monarchy. Did you feel this? No, I didn't feel that it was anti-monarchy. I think it was very much kind of biased towards Diana's side of the story. And watching the documentary Diana in Her Own Words, that confirmed it for me, that what they've done is they've pretty much got a lot of their content from Diana's words, from her version of the story. I don't think it's necessarily anti-monarchy. I think they've just got the timescales a little bit mixed up. They've kind of brought timescales forward a lot more. I think they've kind of chronicled the demise of the marriage perhaps a lot earlier than it actually was in reality. We know from Diana in Her Own Words that she wasn't happy pretty much from the start, but I think they've portrayed Charles going back physically to Camilla a lot earlier than it was. I think, Charles was always mentally invested with Camilla. I think Charles is the sort of person that you have to have kind of a mental connection to have that kind of real physical connection. He had the mental connection with Camilla. I don't think he had that with Diana, purely because they both wanted the same thing. The Diana, in her own words, also confirmed to me, because Diana said, what she wanted was to be told, was to be praised. She wanted to be told that she was doing good. She wanted to have that adoration from her husband. Unfortunately for her, she was married to someone who also wanted praise, who also wanted adoration, who also wanted support. They couldn't give it to each other. They weren't able, they weren't in a place to give it to each other. Mentally, physically, the whole shebang. So it's no wonder that the relationship failed. But I don't believe that Charles went back physically to Camilla until after the birth of Harry. In fact, in her own words, Diana said, basically things were good the kind of 6 to 8 weeks before Harry was born. As soon as Harry was born, kaput. It was like both of them checked out of the relationship. Charles probably in particular kind of just checked out. So no, I don't think it's anti-monarchy. I think they've just gone off almost like one source piece of information, basically. Elke Singerful says, I did see that documentary. Ingrid says that's a good point. And Mercury Angel says, the documentary did indicate that Diana didn't seem very happy being in the royal family. Yeah. And clearly felt she wasn't supported. I mean, she actually said that. Yeah. But sometimes, we all might not feel that the support that we are getting is the support that we want to get. And I think there is a clear distinction that needs to be made by that. Just because Diana's saying that she didn't feel supported didn't mean that there was no support, if that makes sense. It just might not have been the support that she needed or wanted. I don't think that the royal family knew how to deal with someone like Diana. She was different. She said herself, no one in the royal family had morning sickness like she had. Now, we know now that, Catherine has extreme morning sickness, hypodermis graver, whatever it is. She has really severe morning sickness. Nowadays, it's dealt with very differently. The royal family has learnt lessons. But back when Diana came into the family, there were lots of things that Diana was bringing to the royal family that they didn't understand. And they probably did see her as being a little bit of a problem. But it doesn't mean that there was absolutely 100% no support. I don't think there was any support in terms of, briefing her in how to be royal. I don't think that she had this kind of, lengthy period of getting to know the role or getting the job. I mean, even Prince Edward said that when he did his first walkabout, he wasn't told what to do. He was just shoved out there, and that's what they do. They kind of just shove you out there and almost let you do your own thing. It's a myth that there is this kind of, really big, thick rule book that has all these rules on how to do things. Basically, the royal family let you go out there and do it your way, but obviously upholding the values and standards of the monarchy. Eileen says, am I channeling Diana in Houndstooth? Yes, I am. Hers was red. She wore it in a jacket suit, but I have it in blue. In fact, I may be able to find you a picture. Let's have a look. And bear with. Ah, here we go. Oh, and Catherine wore something similar too. There we go. Look. Can you see? Can you see the red houndstooth? There we go. So there's Diana and Catherine in red houndstooth. And I've got the blue version, which I absolutely love. It's from Rowing Blazers. If you want to look at it, there you go. There is the link to it. Right, so do we have any other comments or questions about this episode? I'll wait a moment while to see if any come in. But the next episode, the penultimate episode is avalanche, and I think I can guess what that one is because Prince Charles was involved in an avalanche skiing. So I think that could be the only thing that it is, unless it means there's also an avalanche of things deteriorating. Maybe could also be that, but yes, he was involved in a skiing avalanche. So I think it could be about that. Thank you to Eileen. Is it Eileen or Elaine? Looking very smart. Thank you. I'm loving the new jumper. Can't wait to wear it out in public. I only got it today. So yes, I think I'm going to leave my review of this episode here. So if you've enjoyed it, please give it a big old thumbs up. Don't forget to share on social media, and also do hit the bell so that you know whenever I upload a new video. So from me in Shropshire, mwah to you all, and goodbye.